Are you trying to figure out how to get things done? Are you trying to look for knowledge that can actually help you do something, be better at what you do? Hi, I'm Joyce Gikunju, founder of ZD, where we provide affordable online courses for Africa. This is the place for you, the ZD podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with amazing people. And the ultimate goal is to help you know more so you can do more. So I met Joyce Gikunju and I was just blown away by her life story. She is the classic queen of comebacks. If I was to give her if she had a movie, I would call it the queen of comebacks, because she has been through so many interesting experiences in her life. But ultimately, her life is so much about being able to bounce back. And she actually has a book called Bounce Back and Thrives, where she has chronicled the stories of titans, people who've made it, but also have a good story of how you overcome failure to get to where you need to be. So when Joyce came on to create her course for ZD, her course is all about public speaking. And the reason is because her secret sauce, her magic, her talent, her gift that has propelled her despite all the challenges she has faced is her gift as a public speaker. Her gift in terms of how she presents herself, how she speaks, and how she uses that in the different areas of her life, whether she was in a job or whether she's running a business. So this podcast is so special to me. In fact, it ran longer than I would have planned. But I'm excited that I did it, and I'm excited for you because you're going to get so many nuggets. But mostly what you're going to see is, in listening to her story, her multiple experiences, you'll be able to see what it takes to be able to thrive, to be able to come back despite the different challenges that life brings your way. And by the way, a special note for business owners, Joyce also has a business that failed, and that's also a comeback story that she has. So if you're going through a tough time with your business, or you've also been in that space where you had a business and you had to let it go, or you're struggling, this would be a good one for you as well. In this podcast, listening to her, you'll get to see some interesting lessons and insights about how she managed that, and also encouragement that she went through that and she was still able to come out strong. So here we go. So hi, Joyce.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
So I'm so glad we're doing this. We've already had some interesting conversations.
Yes.
Very interesting that we've met today, and it's like we should have met years ago.
Both
authors, both trainers, we almost sound like two halves of the same coin.
Yes.
It's so refreshing to meet you. You're the people I meet and I feel like, sigh. We drank the same Kool-Aid.
Yes.
We got into the same philosophies of life, and here we are, similar visions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very exciting. Yeah. So welcome to the ZD podcast. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Finally.
There's a lot I know people can learn from you.
Yes.
For those who are listening and not watching the video, let me compliment Joyce. She's very well put together. She looks nice in a nice dress, her makeup. And that's the other thing I also noticed when you recorded your course that I admired. And I guess those are some of the things you would teach about public speaking. So maybe this is my way of complimenting to say you live your principles, right? And I noticed that as well when you did your course. All the things you are teaching came out in the way you are speaking. But anyway, before we go into all that, let's start by who are you? I think there's always the story.
Yes.
I went and I was looking at your profile. I could not understand where do we come from selling insurance to selling cars. Hey, you guys, Joyce has a story.
Yeah.
So maybe start us off with, because you didn't start out with being the author and the public speaking trainer. Yes. So what's your story? How did all this happen?
So I graduated in 1997, Daystar University. I did a degree in communications, which is basically everything I am doing now, as opposed to what I did way back in 1997. So I graduated at a time when you could not choose where to work. Obviously, the economy wasn't what it is now. So with that in mind, I took the first job I got, which was travel insurance. And they wanted people who were graduates, and that was the only requirement. So they picked me. And I said, you know what, I'm open to learning. And one of the first things I learned very quickly is that I actually enjoy selling. Really? I enjoy being outside of the office, which I find stifling. I enjoy talking to people, engaging them, just listening to what it is that they need, and then seeing how I can plug in. So at the end of the year, I said, I love the selling, but I'm not loving the travel insurance. So that's when I hopped on to a better a deal that came along shortly thereafter to sell new cars.
But before you move from that, insurance doesn't have a good rap. Like,
Yes.
I'm thinking about the fact that you started out with the hard thing.
Yes.
Because I'm imagining, there's sales and there's the product you're selling, like you said. How was that? Because insurance is the thing. For when somebody calls me with insurance, I might not even let them finish their name before I hang up. Like, we have a very negative connotations with insurance sales.
Yes.
So for you coming out of school, I'm imagining the fresh face. You have no clue what you're signing up for.
No idea.
What was that like? Then you go to realize, there's a thing. What I'm selling is a bit, What was that experience like?
So for me, luckily, I was working for a large American multinational insurance company. That helped. That had been in Kenya for a long time. That helped. And then also the fact that we were only dealing with travel insurance means our market was very targeted. We were only training and selling insurance to travel agents. Full stop.
Okay, not individuals.
No.
Okay. So that's a bit different from calling people up to say, hey, buy insurance.
Yes.
But you still didn't enjoy it in terms of the product.
You see, when you go into some travel agents, they tell you they are busy and they're still looking at you like an insurance person. And yet they know that their clients ask for travel insurance. So what some used to do actually is that when they don't want to be trained and they get a request for travel insurance, they just say, 1 minute, let me get a call. And then they'd send the client to us and we were near the CBD. So that worked out quite well. And they still got their commission. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then on to what did we sell next? Now that we love sales.
Now that we love sales. It's so interesting how now I ended up getting into motor vehicle sales. Let me detour for a bit. Because I was young, I remember one weekend when I was not doing anything, there was an opportunity to do, actually, again, a big company that wanted models to sell cars. Yes, I know. So what
do you know
I
the way
did,
car models have a weird vibe around them? They're usually half dressed. The images that go into my mind.
I know, but can you imagine
looking sexy, trying to sell the sexy with the car?
Yeah. So what happened is that weekend when I remember I was still working for the insurance company, I went and did, and that time I remember it used to be at KICC. So that weekend, I enjoyed doing the model selling cars. I had so much fun.
Wow.
When a car company said they were looking for an insurance sales for a car salesperson, I just applied. Went, got interviewed by the panel of directors, and I was in.
Wow.
So imagine one weekend when you're doing nothing, you go and model for cars, enjoy the experience. And I said, this is better than selling insurance. And I worked there for a year until I got
And were you right? Did you enjoy selling cars?
I was a top salesperson at the
commissions
end of the
were
year.
good. Like when you sell the thing that costs, I don't know, $1 million. That's
exactly.
like a nice commission.
Yes. So I was a top salesperson at the end of the year and I thought, wow, I had a ball. I had so much fun.
Okay.
So yes, I did insurance. I mean, I moved from insurance. I went and sold cars. I did that. Cars, I think I sold for 2 years before the company resized. And yeah, I had a blast.
Okay.
Yes.
But then the company resizes. So your story is getting more interesting for me because we're going from highs to lows.
Yes.
Because the last thing I expected you to say is I got retrenched.
I know. I
so
didn't expect
don't rush through that one because it's one thing to be retrenched when things are not working. You just said you were the top salesperson.
Yes, I was.
How exactly what was this rationale that was going on? Why, anyway, what was that like? And I'm sure were you caught by surprise?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I was definitely caught by surprise because I knew that I was the top person. I had just sold a fleet of cars. But when they let me go, I learned something else called last in, fast out. Yes. So I guess that's what it was.
Those people, anyway, I have a few views about that. Okay.
Yes.
But so how old were you at this point?
Now I'm 25?
And you've already been retrenched.
Yes.
I'm thinking people get retrenched when they're in their 50s
55.
and what. And I'm lingering on this because when I think about what's going on now in our economy and the stuff that's happening, people are going through interesting experiences in terms of jobs and,
Yeah.
And so for you at a young age, you had this challenging experience where you're at the top of your game. You're even actually doing well in your career.
Yes.
But then you work for somebody and they just decide they're letting you go.
And I had a 2-year-old at the time.
Okay. Please tell us. There's like there are lessons over lessons.
Yes.
What was that like for you? What happened to you? What was that experience like?
Okay, first of all, it's so interesting when you're young, you don't even think, oh my gosh, I've been retrenched, what will happen to my baby? It was more like, where's the next exciting thing? Where's the next exciting place to go?
Okay.
Because luckily for me, I started learning to save at a very early age. So I always had cushioning
There's a lesson there, right?
Oh, let me tell you, the lesson is, this is what, 20 years, some 20 odd years later, I actually have a talk I do. It's one of my signature talks, how to move from layoff to launch. How do you use that transitioning period to move from the ugly situation that you caught yourself in to a situation that you want to identify with. Why do I say identify with? Sometimes we look at our lives and we're like, I don't even recognize my own life. So that is why I do that signature talk, because like you can see, this is from my own experience and it started happening to me at a very young age. So 20 years later, it's the lesson after the lesson after the lesson that I learned that I have put together into a signature course, a signature talk that I do at Kayana, which is like a women's hub.
I know Kayana.
And you know Kayana.
I know,
so they always invite me.
Pat.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm always invited to talk about my experience and what lessons you should glean from nasty things happening to you. Do you
you're
pick the
talking
lesson,
and I'm just like, this is the online course.
or do you get angry?
You mentioned the topic
Yes.
and immediately,
Yeah.
like I said, in this season, people are really going through it. I'm in a group, for women who are in business, and the post that people were sharing yesterday started with one person saying how they're shutting down their business. It's like this economy that's going on in the world, businesses are struggling. I've decided to. So she was even sharing her CV, and it's somebody who people in the group know. It's even for you're shutting down. And the funny thing, of course, that sparked 5-6 other stories. Even somebody posted there who I did not even know. We were even discussing with her some partnerships for ZD last year.
Yes.
And she also shares, yeah, me too. Next month I'm going into a job. So it's when I was sleeping last night, this was actually what was on my mind, that wow, people, this is a real thing. People are there's something, it's you hear it, it's tough, but when you see stories like that, it sinks in. So I'm just emphasizing to you that if ever there's a time when people need to hear this and be encouraged to know you always have multiple options. So I'm even, for sure, trust me, I'm coming to you for that. This is the online course we need to do, because I know a lot of people will connect to that content. And
the thing I say about that always is there's the recorded information, but also seek to run after when the talk is live. So the online is the taster, the live experience of hearing other people also ask questions.
And also we are all together in this. So it's a group vibe, energy. I get it.
The energy is so important, because I remember when I got on stage last week, but people didn't want me to leave the stage. They just wanted to hear the full story and also what I did, what the lessons were, and how can you move forward strongly as a woman without getting angry and without thinking about where you came from, but more so where are you going to, and moving with a lot of strength.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about now for you how this applied. So what did you do? So like I hear you when you say you are young.
Yes.
So the benefit of, we call it benefit of youth, for you don't have time to you didn't dwell on it. You're more action oriented too.
Yes.
Okay, I need to move on. So what happened next? How did your story move on from there?
Right. I remember the number 2 salesperson, first of all, did not believe, because she had been number 1 until I came. So when she heard that I had been released, she actually called me and told me, Joyce, I'm going to get you a job. She called me and said, she made one phone call and she said, go. And she sent me to a place where I worked next. That's the beauty of the story. When you know you've done everything right. That's how I got my next job. Wow. The number 2, we were competing with her, but we ended up becoming friends.
Oh, wow.
She actually got me my next job.
Okay.
Yes.
Which says something about, I call it don't burn bridges, because you never know where your relationships will take you. If you and her had an antagonistic relationship, then that wouldn't have happened. So another lesson there.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
And there's also a manager of a different section of the same company that also called me and told me, Joyce, I heard what happened to you. I'm making one phone call. That's what they were all saying. I just need to make one phone call. And he said, I need to send you somewhere. So I got 2 offers from my former colleagues. Wow. One, a fellow sales representative, and another one, a senior sales manager.
Big lesson. People don't realize, and I say this to my team a lot in terms of how we work together. We always have this joke where we say, you don't know if the person sitting next to you as a colleague would even be the CEO of a company down the road.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, a lot of people, when they're working in a job, think of pleasing the boss, or they're thinking of that relationship. They're not thinking that the person who's my peer could also be just as important in terms of nurturing the relationship, respect, because they could also be the people who lead me into an opportunity. Yes. So that's a really good lesson.
So it was amazing for me, I remember. And then remember that there's also a deal we had worked out with her where where it was her department that had the sale, but we were splitting the commissions, and we agreed to split the commission on this last deal that we had done with her.
Wow.
So I remember once she was in a matatu and she saw me, and you know how Kenyan matatus operate. You have to go to the terminus to pick it and go somewhere. But she saw me when she was halfway somewhere, and she actually she jumped out and she said, "Joyce, I was carrying your money." Imagine.
Wow.
So she jumped out of the matatu. She gave me my money. Do you know it actually paid school fees for my baby?
Wow.
Yes.
So also, oh my gosh, people are ethical.
You're hearing this, she jumped out, and I
Yes.
just thought, what kind of human beings are these? Amazing people everywhere.
Wow.
Imagine, she actually stepped out and she said, "Joyce, I have your money, I have your money." It was
Then
enough
you
to
do
pay for school fees.
So it's also that providence that can come from different places. You know, it's anyway so much.
Yes.
But tell me what happened next. So you got what was the next job?
So the next job, which is what now I took like a holding on to job, I was a customer service manager in a small growing organization. So I knew as long as I'm not out selling, I cannot stay in such a place. So I stayed there for 2-3 months and then I left. I got the next big thing.
Okay.
So I did that for 3 months and then I went and worked in the airline for another 11 years. That is why I think I did the most of my corporate life.
And you know, I saw this again on your profile.
Yes.
And the first question I was going to ask is, what's a flight purser? It sounds amazing. It's like, I was trying to picture, because I mean, I've taken flights before.
Yes.
So I was like, you know, we all know the flight, I don't know, call it the air hostess. Is that the right word? Is that the politically correct word? But you know, the person taking care of us on the flight. But I'm like, who is this person? I've never heard of. I don't know if I know anyway. Right. So that was the first question I was going to ask, because I saw that's what it says on your profile, and I was like, but what does a flight purser do?
So a flight purser is like a cabin director. Everything stops with
why
you.
don't they say cabin director? Anyway,
I know.
Cabin director. That sounds like,
I know.
Now I get it. And it's actually anyway. Okay.
Yes.
So cabin director. So what would you do?
So a cabin director is the one who is the hands and the legs of the captain. When I say go is when he says we go. When I say we don't go, we're not going anywhere.
Snap my fingers.
I know.
You're the captain. You see, it's gotten fancy.
Yeah.
They need to change that name from flight purser.
I know. It's true. The work of a purser is, you know, the name doesn't even begin to describe what he does, what he or she does.
But without any airline experience, how do you get into being a flight purser? Or did you start with a different role?
You start from the bottom and you find your way up.
Yes. Which was what for you?
Which, when you start as a flight attendant.
Okay, so that's what you did first.
That is what I did first. And then, of course, when you have people who know how to pick out skills, they quickly notice, no, she's not she just sort of took a job down to climb up, which is actually what I did. And I remember I worked my way and I worked hard. And at some point, this is another thing that people don't know. There's a job inside the aircraft that involves selling. You're selling high-end...
Of course, the duty free.
Yes. And this one has high-end gifts. It has high-end gadgets. It has high-end expensive stuff. Like, for example, I'm wearing a designer watch I bought from there, 10 years ago? And it's still working. Even if I swim with it or I dive with it, it still works.
Can I make you laugh? Even this watch was bought on a flight.
See?
That my husband bought it for me.
Like
so flight things.
Yes. And they're high-end. Like mine is DKNY, for example. It would be, $200-$300? And it's the real thing. So the thing about the position, it was a sales consultant position. And that's, I think, where I became the most visible in the airline. Yes, I became so visible and I won the top sales award 3 years in a row.
So it's a proper, like they track your sales. Do you are there commissions for that or no?
Yes, I was earning the top commission and I hit the ceiling of commissions. So they couldn't pay me more than, a certain amount. Yes. So when I got that dummy check, and the dummy check is given by the MD every end of the year. I remember one time he once said, "You again." I knew it was time to go. Yes, because it means I need new frontiers. I need to...
You need a challenge.
Yeah.
But 11 years is not a short time, especially after your 1 year and then 1 year. But is it because you felt like you found yourself, like your space, so you were there for that long? Is it also because it's interesting? You are traveling a lot,
travel, going to Europe. Today you're in Amsterdam. Tomorrow you're in London. Then you're in Thailand. You're in Hong Kong. That was exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, that was exciting. But at some point I realized, you know what? This is not sustainable for my legacy. And my legacy was I have to have another baby. And I was not going to fly and leave my baby behind. That one was not going to happen. So I made a decision, this is not adding up to my goal for the next decade. And this was 2010. So I started getting frustrated. And I thought,
fulfillment.
Yes. But at the point, I didn't know that word was so powerful. I knew there was a problem, but I didn't know what it was. Now, many years later is when I was like, ding,
That's what it was. You needed to be fulfilled.
Yes. And I wasn't getting fulfilled at all.
Okay.
So again, I cushioned myself because I knew something was coming. You know, the way you just feel like I'm not happy. I'm not happy. So I started cushioning myself, and I'd save like a huge amount of my commissions and my salary because I knew I needed a break and to move to something else. I knew entrepreneurship was calling.
But you know, again, another lesson there, because people ask me for this. I actually even have a course on ZD called Employment to Entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And I'm very glad you've touched on that. And one of the biggest things I share about that transition is the financial cushion and the fact that it's not an impulsive decision. Sometimes people overhype this whole, leave your job and start a business without talking to the reality.
Yes.
And so even when I have colleagues who are frustrated in corporate and they're like, how did you do it? You know, and maybe they're looking for the jazzy fun story of come to our life of entrepreneurship. You shall be your own boss. The tips are very practical. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to tell you the hyper fun stuff. I'm going to tell you the truth, which is even in the first year, you're essentially learning anyway, right? There's nothing that will take off quickly depending on your strategy and what you're doing. So the bigger tip is, are you prepared? I even almost tell people sometimes, like that's what I did to test out their concept before they leave. Like in my case, Jibebe, I've just told you about the book. I started writing my book when I was still employed. And I used to give talks on the weekend. I used to use my salary to give talks on the weekend. Like put up a tent. But you know, for me, it was simply, can I sustain this? Or am I even passionate enough about this to do it? You know, when you're doing it once, it seems nice.
Yeah.
When you're doing it every weekend, if you don't love it, you will learn very quickly this is not your thing. And also, are people willing to pay? I've learned there's no business you have if people are not willing to pay for your service. So you have to test that out. So for you, I hear the thing I've admired first that you've done, and I think people can learn, is the same lesson of you cushioned yourself financially. And how long was this period where you were saving, and how far ahead were you thinking in terms of, I already know I'm going to leave, so I'm starting to prepare? Was it a year? Was it 6 months?
I used to hear people saying 6 months, but I used to think to myself, it doesn't sound enough. So I did a full year.
Well done.
Yes, I did a full year. And I just cut out on non-essential expenditure. I stopped going. When I go to a country, for example, when I go to London, I stopped shopping. I mean, I've shopped everything everywhere. So I cut out my expenditure and I just completely cushioned myself.
Wow.
Yes. And then I did what many people don't do. I actually sat down to work out my net worth.
Wow.
Yes. And actually discovered that I had more than I needed. And I bought myself a new Mercedes.
You know, your story is so interesting because you go one direction.
I know.
And then the next thing is okay.
Like all of that.
But that was also because you learned a lesson about where you should really be putting your money, right? Which is also a good lesson.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can do that. Like you can have extra and be using it for all, like you said, you're using it for shopping, for what? If you consolidate, you actually, sometimes we're capable of buying ourselves good assets and nice things, but we don't know because we are spending.
Yeah.
We're not spending well. Our spending habits are not correct. Good for you.
It's true.
So tell me about leaving. The day you resign your job, what happens? It's been 11 years.
It's been 11 years.
You know, 11 years is, people know you've been here forever.
Yes.
And then now you're leaving.
I even remember one time we had a problem in Hong Kong. And people first wanted to find out who the purser was because they knew they sort of got to know us. The frequent flyers knew us and they knew the kind of person who will help you and the kind of person who sort of sit on the fence. So we had real trouble because passengers looked outside and saw that their cargo was being offloaded. I'm telling you, and you know, Nigerians are not small people. They are huge human beings. They came to business class. I tried to ask them to leave and go behind. And then one of them noticed and said, it's Joyce. Please, guys, do what Joyce is saying. She'll help us. So they agreed to move back. I was left with one person and I said, can you speak for the group? And I said, what do you guys need? They said, we need our cargo to come back on board. And I said, consider it done. I will do it. Please take your seat. So I went to the cockpit and I told the captain, this is what's going on. Look outside. And said, they can see that that's their cargo being removed. Please have it back or we will have a problem in our hands. And he just called the ground manager, the number one, and everything got done.
Wow.
Yes, that's how they knew me. But I was just tired because I was not selling. In the flight purser position, cabin director position, you don't sell. You manage people.
Okay. But then, so that's what I'm asking. So the day you had to resign,
Right.
I'm just trying to understand what was it like? Of course, there's the do the letter and say.
It was hard.
Were people surprised? Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes,
It must have
very
been hard for you.
But I had to be genuine to myself. I had to be authentic with me. It was hard, but I had to do it. And I had always told my friends, I want to get into business. I want to get into business now, sounding like a broken record. Yes. So I left and stayed. I remember it was June 2011. I didn't work the rest of the year.
So first you took a break.
Yes, I did. I took a break.
There's so many lessons here.
Yes, I took a break. I really needed to just breathe in, breathe out.
Where did we go? One place for 11 years. You've been employed. You didn't just jump straight into the business.
No.
Why? Weren't you worried about money? Weren't you worried that?
No.
So you really cushioned.
I really cushioned myself. In fact, I remember I had just put my son into Form 1.
Hey.
Yes. I had just put him into Form 1 in January. And this is June. I was that ready.
Hey.
And then also remember, when your child is called to national schools, most national schools in Nairobi charge very fairly.
Oh, they do.
Very. They are so fair. You're like, are you sure this is it? Yeah, it's that good.
So between all that, somehow you are okay, and you felt you need to now almost go back into yourself, figure it out. Okay.
Yes.
And by then now was the baby here? Was the baby in progress? Because you mentioned at some point how a child was your plan and your vision to have another child was part of it.
That's a story for another day. There was no baby coming and didn't come for another many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I can see how that would be. But it was still your inspiration at the time because, like you said, you didn't want to be traveling.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, anyway, that's a long story, I'm sure. But I've just thought that's also stepping out in faith. It's a big deal. It's stepping out in faith because for something bigger also that you want to achieve. Did you have naysayers? Like, and you have the same story, which is why I'm able to even ask you these questions.
Yes.
I left a high-flying corporate job at Safaricom. In 2009, I know, I've seen your expression. We've not talked about this, Trace. I told you we are two halves of the same coin.
Oh my gosh, Safaricom? Oh my goodness.
But you see, that's to be honest, that's the same way people look at you and would say KQ, as long as it's this corporate that's established and you're earning, a good income and all that, everybody will be like, are you crazy?
I know.
How do you leave KQ? You've been there for 11 years. You even established you have your net. There's naysayers. There's a lot more people who will see the crazy in it as opposed to the wow.
Yeah.
They'll see the wow, but they'll be like, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Did you have a lot of that happening to you?
I remember one time, I just happened to be standing in the business class area with the pilot, and I told him I want to leave and go. And he said, you have to test out your product 6 months and see that it's making money. I remember that conversation. And I just thought to myself, what does he know?
Oh, because has he done it?
That's the thing, because I just thought to myself, I'm not having this discussion with anyone, but it's something about what he said made sense. That yes, you have to test it, see that it works, and then you jump out. I was so tired. I didn't have time to just
But also in your case,
jump.
I understand. Even creating the product, in your case, I think having been in that situation for so long, I can understand why taking a break makes sense. Because even the inspiration, the knowing what is this product I'm creating, what is this next step that I need to take? And I've seen that work with people who, like you, have just been in a role for long, or you need to disconnect from the thing you are doing before you go to the next thing. Just a bit,
You need to disconnect. And then also don't forget, when you're in the airline, it's as if you don't live in Kenya. You really don't know what's happening on the ground here. That's what I discovered.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's like when you come from the diaspora, people also look at you like an outsider. Even for us, same situation. People look at you like you're an outsider. You don't connect with the local. You don't know anything on the ground, and they treat you as such. Yes. So not expecting a lot of support, but I know. I could see, and I used to hear how people treat you. So I didn't want to give a lot of people space to, speak into my life. Yes, I just wanted to do a lot of observing, which is what I'm very good at. Observing, watching news, and also sort of seeing how things are, hearing how things are, and then deciding to dive into what I am passionate about, and that's what I did.
Okay, so tell us about that. How did you identify what you're passionate? So you've been on a break, right?
Yes.
What was that next step? How did you figure it out? How did you start?
So one time I remember I was watching a program on TV, and there's a speaker who was on TV, and he was speaking about something that just connected with me. And then I looked for him and I called him and I actually met with him. And I said, there was just something about your interview on TV that I connected with and I don't know what it is. You know? So that was that. I ended up registering my own business. I ended up doing an experiential marketing business.
Wow.
Yes.
I even thought it still wasn't this.
Yeah, it still wasn't this. There's a long meandering. Long story short, that's the business that when it failed is where the book was born. Like, how do you bounce back and thrive?
But Joyce, you have an amazing story. You know, you because you know what I love about your story. In some ways, you followed the right. You've ticked the boxes. You're doing things right. You saved.
Yes.
You cushioned yourself.
I cushioned.
You took a break.
Yes.
Those are all the boxes. Even like I said, when I'm teaching people, that's what I would say. It's like I wouldn't have done anything different. So, and then you go into a business. So you experiential market. How long did you have in this business?
From 2012 all the way to 2015. So that's 12,
3 years.
13, 14, 15, 4 years.
Wow, 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years is a lot. So
4 years is a lot.
And I know, I'm in business, you put your heart and soul.
Everything.
So talk to me about that, because when you go into a business, all of us start a business with, this is my vision, passion, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
And then you go into it, you do it, you've already kind of given us the end where you say it didn't work out, or you had to let it go.
I had to let it go.
So what happened? You know, maybe start with when you launched, this was, a bit of the story of the business.
Right.
But then towards how you realized this wasn't it, because that's also, you have so many lessons. We could do many courses, because there's something, and I go through it, which is why I like talking about it. There's an element to your story of what I just told you, even in the WhatsApp group yesterday. People are letting go of their businesses. It's so hard. Let me tell you, for me, leaving a job, easy. You know, a business is there are so many emotional things tied to you, like saying your business is not working, admitting it, from even as I say it, I'm thinking, where would you start? How do you, anyway, so tell us, because I'm already going into emotions, like it's me.
It was devastating. Let's be honest. It was devastating because I was excited. I was having fun.
Okay.
I was, it had really come together.
Okay. What was the business? Tell me how you started, and just a rough, even if it's a short,
right,
just to help us understand what was you said, I see how you launched it.
Yes.
So what was the business? Why did you choose to start it? And,
So for example, you have a high-end product and you want to run it to your target market. And let's say your target market is the people who can afford to be in a golf club, a membership. Yes. So I tell you, this is your product. This is who your target audience is. Yes. So how do you get your product to be visible to the people that you want it to be visible to?
That's what experiential marketing is. That's why people do road shows and all that. Because that's what we know experiential to be. So it's not too far off, right? Okay.
So for example, I tell the client, you're selling high-end, you're selling condos. You're selling condominiums in Kenya. First of all, half of the Kenyans can't even tell you what a condo is.
I was there like, do I know what a condo is?
So for example, it's a condominium. You're selling them at the coast. They're beautiful. They're like lots and lots of square footage, and you're selling it for what I would consider a fair price. But nobody knows about your product. So I say, can I take your product to your target market? And he says, can you run that can you do it? I said, yes, I can organize a golf tournament for you. I can do a series that will run everywhere where you need your product to be known. And then in the evening, they always give you like a 10-15 minute slot where you talk about the product. And I noticed that people loved when I did those presentations. They're like, and they'd even come and ask me, which golf club are you going to next? Which golf club are you going to next?
Wow.
I know.
So this is your speaking talent, not necessarily your marketing. There's a fine line.
Okay. That is when I discovered that when I speak, people
in front of
engage. And engage to the extent they're asking, where can we buy these houses? When can we see them? And that was the idea.
It's what made you good at sales, Joyce.
That is, yes. So I tell them, you need to sign up and come for the weekend to Mombasa and see the houses yourself. You book an apartment, you stay the weekend, you sort of get an experience of what will your life be like when you're finally living in the condo, for example, when you bring your family on holiday.
But so now I'm even more, this sounds amazing. How did this not work? You sounded like you were doing well.
Yes.
What happened?
Even me, I couldn't believe it. It's one of those things that everything is nice and amazing and you're thinking this is the life. And then the work just gets finished.
How does the work get finished?
Exactly. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how can you...
How does the work get? So what, customers just stop coming? Everything you're doing is not working. What happened?
It's a high-end market. Not everyone, first of all, can afford your fees. And you can't start going down and saying, oh, I'm going to work with this person who has a small budget.
Well, some people do. So there are more lessons there.
Yes.
Some people compromise their business because they're trying to stay alive when really the lesson is too close.
I'm learning that now. I'm learning that now. For example, I now do training. And if you tell me you can't afford the fee, for example, in my Kilimani area, I'll go to my other area, which is a nice area, yes, but at your budget. Yes. So I simply tailor. I learned that the hard way.
But tailoring works for some things and not for others. I mean, I'm actually empathizing with the previous business and seeing how, anyway, starting to understand your transition.
Yeah,
so what is this moment? Okay, so I'm sure it was a long story where things were happening, sales were not coming in. But what was that moment where you actually made that decision, where you actually said, I have to let it go?
Now, that's the interesting story. So we're in 2015. I'm just not getting new clients. And I just thought to myself, what is this? Where do I go? What do I try? Remember social media landscape? I don't even think I had anything on social media. I didn't have a social media footprint. I think I was looking for clients, but I didn't know how to do that because most of the time the clients used to find me. Yes.
Referrals.
Yes, referrals. So I thought the referrals would forever flow. When the referrals stopped flowing, I started getting frustrated. And then at some point, I started giving up. Yes, I started giving up because I was thinking, oh gosh, this is not good. Then, it's so interesting. Just when I'm about to give up and thinking, how unfair can this get? I find out I'm expecting. Finally, yes, I know. When everything else is sinking, now what I wanted 6 years ago is what I wanted 5 years ago. Yes, I find out I'm expecting, and I'm thinking, okay, thank you, universe. You have. I
was about to say, what a way to answer a query, right? So then
I just looked up and said, you have a sense of humor.
I like saying that as well. I'm like, God, you have a sense of humor when things like that happen.
What? Because everything else is sinking. I have nothing left to hold on to. Okay, here's the one thing I'm left holding on to.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. Imagine. But at the same time, it's... Because men, let me tell you, I told you I have an 8-month-old. That first trimester, anyway, those are other stories. I was about to say, there's for sure, and I won't lie about this for any woman listening, pregnancy, and I'm in business. And in fact, for me, my first was born just after I launched ZD. So I have a lot of stories about mompreneurship.
What?
And the one thing I know is the fact that pregnancy in itself, the 9 months.
Yes.
When you're running a business, whatever you're doing, you take a hit.
It's true.
It's one of the greatest things I had to make peace with in my life with ZD, that there's a pace I work at, these things I do. Not to say I'm not good at what I do or I'm not a performer, but the sheer toll on your body as a woman and what you're going through, there's a cost, and you just have to be at peace with it.
Yes.
So I'm saying this because listening to your story, and the first trimester is the we all know. Funny enough, it's like when you're not showing is when you're feeling the worst.
Yes.
You don't have energy, you can't, and you see your business at that time really
there was nothing going on.
But you see, for you to, if you were to try and fix it, that's what I'm trying to say. I think your energy would, there's a space you needed to be in that I think getting pregnant takes away. Yes. There's a hustle and fix. and let's get out there and sell and do. That is not going to be there. So was that why you chose to then let it go?
That is what actually helped me make the decision. Yes, because I knew, like you said, I will not be able to. So it's as if I watched it falling in slow. You know the way on
I can see a leaf.
You know the way a leaf falls in slow motion on a windy day. It just, and you watch it falling in slow motion. Yeah, so I couldn't believe it, but I actually watched it like a leaf on a sunny, warm, windy day. It actually fell in front of my eyes in slow motion. Wow. And there's nothing I did or could do. Any last minute rescue effort was just not yielding. So I asked myself, the way sometimes you're holding on to something, it starts to hurt you. I asked myself, am I going to let this thing hurt me, or am I going to let it go? Yeah.
So you let it go. Did you have debts? Was there
did I have debts?
Yes. So there was also a sort of a financial, and of course there was more of a process to folding the whole thing, which I'm sure was not easy.
It was not easy, but
and
luckily.
And how long did it take? Just to feel like you're done and you've shut down and now you've nothing left and you can go on to the next chapter.
Right. The first thing I did was to call my tax advisor. And I said, you need to put the tax obligations on hold. And I told him this is what's going on. He was so understanding and he said, Joyce, you owe us. And I said, I know. And he said, because we know you, don't worry. We'll do it. We'll invoice you. We know you'll pay us. Imagine. You find good people when things go wrong.
But is this scary? Or it's somebody who consults?
So you a tax agent.
Oh, yes. Who helps with that whole process?
Yes.
Okay.
So the tax agent, you tell the tax agent this is what's going down. Put the tax obligations on hold.
Okay.
So that's what they did. And of course they invoice you, but they do it. Some people can say, oh, you owe us. He just said, you know what, Joyce, we'll do it. I know you'll pay.
So it's like pay when you're ready or pay in installments and you'll sort of unwind it with time.
Yes, that's what he did. He actually told me pay in installments. When you're ready, when you have something, just pay. And that's what I did. But he actually put everything on hold.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is done.
Yes.
Emotional toll, mental. What happens next? Did you just jump into the next thing or did you take another break?
So that's the other story. I actually took a break because when I went to see the doctor, he said, Joyce, first of all, you're a certain age. Okay?
Doctor.
I know, you're a certain age. So first of all, the first white doctor I went to looked at me and I could see he was like almost confused. Yes? So when I saw that confused look on his face, I just thought to myself, no, I'm not going to work like this. I can't work with somebody who looks like he's afraid.
And he's doubt. Yeah, you don't need that.
Yes, afraid and also asking me like, how did this, So I moved to another doctor and he just looked at me in my face and told me, Joyce, you can't work. You have a difficult situation. Okay. Yes. Okay. He told me you have a difficult situation, you can't work. And already I could tell it was true because even driving was a problem.
There's a way you are feeling.
There's a way I was feeling. Okay. Yes, I was not feeling
but I like
young
such
anymore.
Doctors.
Yes.
In terms of that's somebody who's honest and will walk the journey with you. Okay.
And I knew he'll walk the journey with me when he told me you can't work. He just told me that straight up. But he said, I'll walk with you through the journey. Let's take this on. And I can see the results of your test and everything. It can be done. You just need to listen to me. Okay. Don't work. I tried working part-time. It was damaging.
I can see your personality. It's like looking in a mirror.
I know.
And we are told don't work. And you're like, if I have my laptop on my bed, I'm not working. Yes, you are.
Let me tell you, it was damaging to do part-time. I remember at some point, even washing dishes at the sink I could not. It was that bad. So, yes, I took another break.
For the entire, it was basically, and it's not 9 months, but it's a year because it's 9 months plus maternity plus.
Actually, yes.
Oh, and that's your daughter now, the one who's 4.
The one who's turning 4 next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's also a testimony. By the way, this podcast, gosh, I feel like this should have been part 1 and part 2 because you have such a wonderful multi-layered story. We could even go into tangents on each. You've gone through multiple life lessons that people go through. I think one person going through things that people don't go through all at once in their lives,
true.
And that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so because of time, I'm even realizing we could be here for much longer. I'm glad. In fact, I'm feeling like your story there's a lot we've gotten out of just getting to hear what you've gone through and where you've been.
Yes.
But I guess it's now getting to see how you got to where you are now. So of course you took a break.
Yes.
You had your baby.
Yes.
So how does the next chapter, the one you're in now, which I'm guessing is what happened, unfold to getting us here, right?
Yes, the good story now.
The good story.
So the good story is, I remember one time I was, it's so interesting. There were April rains every year in Kenya. So I remember one time something happened to me and I started walking in the rain. And when I was walking in the rain, I asked myself, when I was a little girl and it didn't matter, what would I be doing? So as I'm walking in the rain, even a lady stops and asks me, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. She looks at me like, I doubt you're fine, but she just drives away. In fact, I'll never forget that car was either a Vanguard or a RAV4. She drives away. But as I walked, I asked myself, what do you want out of this life? Think of yourself as a little girl when you used to run in the rain and it didn't matter that you're going to get soaked wet or beaten up. It didn't matter. What did you want to become? Wow. That was my moment of clarity. Yes. The next morning I woke up. Of course, I went home, showered because, I had really gotten rained on. That heavy rain. got
That's
home.
why that lady thought you were cuckoo, my dear.
Yes, because it was the rain that hits you. You know, the raindrops that hit you, and
Kids
you
don't know those stories. Even 2 drops and we are running.
Yes,
you know.
I'm telling you, I got soaked. But the more the rain rained, I remembered, and I could see.
Symbolic.
It was symbolic. I could see myself running in the rain when I was little, and I used to
true,
love running in the rain.
Actually, my son, when it rains, he even wants to go to that mud puddle. I've
I
also learned
used
a few
to
lessons
go
from
to
him.
the mud
And
puddle.
I'm like, actually, this is how we used to be.
Then I get sick. But I remember the moment of clarity was when I got completely soaked. Went home, showered. The next morning, it's like I woke up with fresh eyes.
Wow.
Do you know who I called? My success coach.
Oh.
Now I was ready to bounce back. I called him, and then you know what he told me? I'll never forget. Joyce, in this life, there are no accidents. I have come to see that it is true. Do you know, this is when I feel like I'm living my life, like what I was meant to do. Because I remember when I was going to the university, my father asked me, what do you want to study? And I said, I want to do journalism. And I knew there was no journalism in the public universities, save for University of Nairobi, which I did not specifically want to go to. So when my results came out, he said, yes, you can go and do your journalism now. So I went to Daystar. And what I'm doing now is I'm actually living the life that I wanted to live when I graduate from
But
the
just in a
university.
different way, right? Sort of like,
Yes.
so what is that life? What does it look like?
So when I finished doing my success coaching, first of all, the success coach tells you what your strengths are and how you can monetize
Another
your
lesson.
passion.
Don't try to figure it out on your own. Which is
Yes.
what a lot of us do.
That was my-
Find someone who can guide you if you can, Okay.
It was my brightest. It was like, are you hearing there? I had to get rained on to sort of. So yes, and I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people do. Even those ones in business who are saying they're shutting down.
Yes.
Who is walking the journey with them? Who walked the journey with them? Who is holding your hand? Who is better than you? And it is their life's work to make sure that your business stays afloat. So I remember the following day, I went to see him, and he sat me down and he told me, yesterday I picked your call. Ordinarily, I wouldn't. He was actually going into a meeting. But for some reason, something told him to pick that call. And he's the kind of person who, when you call, he never picks. He's that busy. So his PA picks and says, you will get a call back. That day he picked, and it sort of ticked a box. So I went to see him the next day. I told him what's going on in my life. And he knows when I was doing very, very well. And he just took me through a 90-day success coaching. And it brought out what I am doing today. First thing that came out of that success coaching was he told me this, Joyce, you have a good voice for a podcast. I started a podcast, Bounce Back Pod, which is inspirational stories for people who are struggling in business and people who have bounced back from.
And your experience, it wouldn't have worked if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through. It's the whole dots connecting backward.
Now the dots
you
are
had a
connecting.
story and a call. I'm sort of a calling. I was going to say a calling, a purpose tied to what you've gone through yourself.
Exactly.
And the empathy to walk people through it,
Yes, exactly what you've said. So that is what that is the first thing that came out, the podcast. The next thing that came out, the inspiration. Again, it was a moment which I can't even describe. People think it's like a story of how I had a voice. And that's another story for another day. But the voice instructed me to write a book. You know that moment where you're thinking, I even turned towards the direction of the voice.
Amazing.
And I did exactly what I was told before the lizard brain kicks in.
But just in case people so that they don't think we are crazy and we talk to spirits, I call that voice your intuition. And the thing people don't realize about intuition, I'm a very big intuition as a whole. I can also go into that.
Yes.
But intuition can actually sound like a whisper, and it can sound like somebody has talked to you.
Yes.
It has also happened to me. So yes, and God speaks to us through our intuition.
Yes.
There are many facets to all this.
There are many
but what
facets
you're
to
saying
that.
is not, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
And it only becomes clearer when you're clear. Like I think
Yes.
so the success coaching now through the process you went through, because our intuition gets deadened depending on the experiences we are having in life, right?
Yeah.
And whether we are it's a long story, but whether we are listening or responding or not.
Yes.
So now, I think that's what that
Imagine.
happened to you. So it became clear this is what you need to do.
Oh, it did.
And then you've obeyed. A lot of us again, we'll hear the voice and then we'll be like, there's no way.
Imagine.
And so we won't follow, and yet that's what we are supposed to do.
And that's the other huge lesson about where do you go from there? Do you start asking people? Do you start telling people? The answer is a big no. Can you just hop on, immediately jump in, work quietly until the day the results start appearing?
Big lesson.
Don't tell anyone. At least for
and
me,
what's the
I
reason?
learned.
Just so people understand why do you feel so passionately about that? Where some people might say, but I need to sound off my idea to somebody, and you know?
So I remember one of the lessons, and the person who taught me to pick my lessons was my mother, because I remember when I went home and I was expecting and my business had gone down, she just told me, you trust people too much. You partner with people, they mess you up, and you're always telling people what you want to do. When she said that, it hit me like, boom. What? She analyzed me down to, these are all your errors. And I said, I'm going to fix me. One by one, I stopped partnering with people partnering in terms of, when I have a big idea, I'm the one with the idea.
Who's going to come and do it with you?
Yes.
And even though you might not need them.
That's the thing that I discovered, that the people who are fleecing me, and that's another reason why my business went down, is because I'm trusting people to do things, and then they just mess me up, run with the money. I'm left with my big idea. And basically, yes, you see. So she just told me all the things in one sentence. It hurt, but I'm telling you, I said I'm going to fix it. So the first lesson I learned is, when I want to work on something, I work on it quietly, especially if I don't need input from somebody. You know, like, what if I tell you, I had a voice that told me to write a book. They're like, enda na wewe, you know? So I thought, you know what, I don't need anyone to speak into my life. Let me listen to the voice and let me run with it. And that's exactly what I did. And that was the month of July 2018. April 2019, I was on KBC Good Morning Kenya talking about the book. Wow. That is the day everybody knew she has written a book.
Wow. Not when you were just about to, not when you were in the process. Amazing.
The day the book was a book. I even remember the only person I told to watch that Good Morning Kenya was my mother. I texted her and told her, watch Good Morning Kenya, 7 a.m. in the morning. She sat down. She's retired. Dad is retired. They sat next to each other. And then coming up next is an author who has written a book about Joyce Gikunju. I remember I was told, my father looked at my mother and asked, did you know she was writing a book? She said, no, I didn't know. So now they waited for the interview. They were so blown away. And then the feedback was, tell her she's done a good job.
Wow.
Imagine. So my lesson is, my type of working is the quiet working.
Yeah.
I work quietly.
Until it's ready, so that nothing else comes in to throw you off the vision.
Exactly.
Okay, so where we are at now, I mean, we've had a long conversation. I'm really just like, you know, this could be a whole other, we'll probably need a part 2.
Even a book.
Even, I'm telling you, I'm just listening to you have an autobiography of, you know, just your life lessons are just amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think the connecting point for us with ZD is really, and even as I've realizing now, you have so many more courses. In fact, I'm actually going to be thinking about that and coming back to you.
Roll them out.
But you came in with a public speaking course.
Yes.
There's a reason. So why public? So I know as you do, you've done Bounce Back and Thrive. And guys, it's an amazing book. We'll probably see if we can tag a link for that as well, so that people can get the book. But why public speaking? So maybe in a very quick, because in a way, what was it that made you decide to create a public speaking course on ZD?
Right. Very good one. Now, if I take you back to the first business, what I discovered worked, what I could pick as the biggest lesson from the thing that didn't die from that business was the public speaking. I noticed that when I speak, people engage, listen, and take action. So I said then, this is my skill. It's a confidence skill. Why don't I use the confidence skill, teach it, and help people solve their problems? Value proposition 101, you know? So that is when I thought, why don't I teach a public speaking course so that it helps people solve their problems? Because half the time why people's businesses fail or why things don't work the way they work is, first of all, people don't know the face behind the organization. The reason why Safaricom is so successful is because when we think of Safaricom, we see the CEO.
It's true.
And that's the thing that people don't realize. You want to work behind the scenes, it doesn't work like that anymore. In this day and age, people want to connect with the person behind the vision, the vision carrier, the enabler.
Something,
Yes, it's true. And that's why I always tell people, you are the number one salesperson for your organization. So then how do you get to that position? You have to polish your public speaking skills. The other reason why I got into it, I realized that we are actually, the reason why reason why people's businesses are also going down is because we're in the age of automation. We're in the fourth industrial revolution. What does this mean for you and me? It means that machines are taking over everything. But what can't machines touch? They can't touch our humanness. They can't touch our skills. They can't touch our human connection. So that means every human being then needs to polish on their skills, because as the machines take away everything else, there are some things that machines will never touch. They'll never touch your public speaking skill. They'll never touch your mindset skill. And they'll never touch your confidence skill, which is public speaking. They'll never touch your mindset skill, because they can't. And then they'll also never touch your sales closing skills. And that is why I picked on these top 3 areas to focus on. And I started with public speaking. Wow. Yes.
So what is for those who are interested in the course, just so we talk about that before we finish.
Yes.
What is the value to doing this course, right? Why should what is it that people will get out of it? And why should people take this course, right?
Yeah. That's a great question. What are the deliverables? Very quick example of what a lot of people are struggling with right now. You put your proposal together, or you're asked to put in a quotation, and then you're told you have to present. This is where people fail. You are the good company. Your organization is known. You put together your presentation, and then you're told to go, you put together your quotations. Then you're told, in order for you to get this contract, you have to go and do a presentation. And then you never hear from these people again. You ask yourself what happened. It's your presentation skills and your confidence skills that are wanting. So it means that as long as you are not sharpened on your presentation skills, even your good business and your good proposals
will not pass, because people, and I agree with you, there's no B2B sale I'll get for sure when I've not stood up. In fact, some of the best ones don't even come with, it's not the proposal.
Yes.
It's that I was able to be compelling when speaking and pitching. It's pitching to the people that I need to talk to. That actually works. Yes. You're right. It has a way more higher effect than any document you with. Documents are a formality.
Yes.
It's you and your conviction to convince.
Yes.
And many people are good with the documents, but they don't know about the conviction and how to stand up and actually then share the same information.
So the secret to public speaking is, and that is the thing that I teach, is what is it that they're looking out for? They're looking out for your visual impact. They're looking out for your vocal impact. They're also looking out for your verbal impact. But mostly, it is the passion in your voice, which cannot be written on a piece of paper. When you're presenting, they can tell the passion you have for the business, and that's how you get the job. But how do you sharpen on your vocal impact? How do you sharpen on your verbal impact? How do you sharpen on your visual impact until you do a public speaking course? Yes.
Okay.
So I help you get your job and get the contract, because we sharpen on your confidence skills.
But what about the person who's employed? Does it mean they can be comfortable and may never need public speaking skills?
Everybody needs public speaking skills.
I agree.
Yes.
In fact, I think a lot of the corporate career now is, do a presentation on this. And people think it's well and good because I'm presenting to my boss or my peers.
Yes.
But you're always being evaluated, you know? And I learned that now for me early on in my corporate career, that just being able to stand up and be more compelling than even when it's obvious, like, see, they know me. Why am I? And then you stand up and you're amazing each time, your promotion will come from there.
And that's another thing about being an entrepreneur, being employed, that people are always wondering, who do we promote next? The one who is the most visible. Visible how? Visible public speaking. Are you able to persuade people? Are you able to influence people a certain way? Mostly in the way of good. Okay. That's how people get promoted. So everybody needs public speaking skills.
Amazing.
Yes.
So in closing, because Joyce, I feel like I need to write. I could go and blog. Maybe I will. Yes. Multiple lessons I've learned from talking to you today.
Do, because that's what my life is all about.
The person who's recording our podcast and filming will laugh at me because, and I'll even confess to you, so far you're the longest person I've had. And I'm not even feeling like time has passed. This has been such a good conversation.
Are we an hour in? Okay,
past. Yes. We're way past. That's what I'm saying. When I've noticed it, I was like, time, because I would have kept going.
Yes.
But just, at the end, I guess what I would say is you've been through so many experiences. There's so much, even just listening to your story, we've learned a lot. What would be the cup of all that? If, what is your, like in closing, what would you say is the, final lesson or big takeaway for the person listening to this podcast who's listened to your story? They've seen the different experiences you've been through. You're really also the bounce back and thrive person, by the way. Like that's you. And that's why now I understand why you wrote the book.
Yes.
Because you've been through multiple moments of top, you've been hit a few times and you always come back.
And I always bounce back.
But what's your final, takeaway or final, message, or, what's the summary cap of all that in terms of a lesson that you think people can take away from you?
First of all, I think the best thing I can tell any human being who's listening to this podcast, you need to buy and read the book. Why? I want you to buy with the aim of looking for something called water. Like drinking water, H2O. And that's the thing that everybody needs to think about when they are wading through this life. Because in life, it's like you're wading through water.
Amazing.
So H2O, the first one, humility. The second one, harmony. The third one, openness. When you're going through things in life, embrace these three things and you will bounce back each time. Remember to be humble. Remember to be harmonious, that when you come across a situation, instead of fighting the situation that's happening, can you find a way to keep on moving? So water is humble. What do I mean by humility of water? Water serves the earth. Everybody drinks water, animals, plants. But have you ever noticed that water does not draw attention to itself?
Fire does, but water doesn't.
Water doesn't.
It's almost like if I had to put a name to it, it would be quietly doing what it's doing.
Yes. Okay. So water quietly doing what it's doing. Water is humble. And yet when you think of every time you see a stream of water, everything is green around it. Evergreen. Harmony. Every time you encounter situations that you're not even understanding, you're at the top of your game, you're brilliant, you have a high AQ, you have a high IQ, you're wondering, why am I brilliant and I'm not getting this? It's because there are other things you don't know. But until you agree to be humble, you won't discover that there's so many other cues that you need in your life. You need EQ, you need AQ, you need SQ. But until you're humble enough to want to learn, that hunger for learning, that you're never at the top, you're never there until you agree to just be a lifelong learner. Even the people I interviewed, some of the billionaires in my book, I tell them, you're at the top of your game. I remember the classic answer I got once. Joyce, I don't know that I'm on top. Wow. Yes. And she's in the billionaire range. But she doesn't know she's on top because for her life is all about learning. So if you want to
and that's also humility.
Yes. That sometimes you'll even be taught by younger people. I mean, Safaricom has very young people teaching people about the social media, how to use Snapchat and all. And yet we all know Safaricom board does not have any millennials on it. That means they're taught by younger people. That humility, right? So humility, harmony, openness. Openness is when problems happen. Don't hide yourself. Open up, you'll find somebody with your solutions. Like, here are your answers.
Wow.
Yeah.
High five. Well done. Thank you. This was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm almost glad. I'm actually glad we hadn't had a long conversation before this, because I'm also listening to you from that. Almost my first time really to hear your story like this. It's been amazing. For those listening, please take Joyce's public speaking course. I'll share a confession. I'm already a student. Me who also thinks that I'm a good public speaker and I've been training. There are wonderful nuggets in there. And so thank you also for doing that. And I'm looking forward to getting the course out to as many people as possible.
Please do.
The link is in the comment section for those who are listening. And we'll also share a link to the book so that you can get the book, because I've seen it. I'm also looking at a copy in my office and I'm so excited. I need to read it. So thank you, Joyce. And this was amazing.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like and share, comment, get involved. Let us know what you think, what you want to learn next, and join us next time.